Ndị be anyị ekene m unu. Asị m ka ọ dịrị na anyị na mma n'ụbọchị nke taa. Dịka isi na-esonyere anyị na Igbo Media, anyị si na ya ọbụla ị chọrọ na ihe eweta ya, maka na ọ bụ nkwa anyị kwere unu na ga na-enye unu ya bụ news nke na-eme na Igbo community and obodo anyị nọ n'ime ya. Dịka anyị sikwa unu nkwa, ya bụkwanụ nkwa ka anyị na-agbakwanụ mbọ ka anyị mezie olu n'elu akwụkwọ itinyelu news kwuru na-anụ ihe na-eme n'obodo dị iche iche n'obodo a. Daalụ nne Igbo ọma na-ege ntị. Enwere iwe na anyị ji asụ Igbo eme ya, ka anyị si wee na-ele iche n'ebe ndị Igbo and ka anyị wee na-akwado asụsụ anyị. Dịka ọ dị otu onye nna anyị n'iru akwụkwọ ya bụ Arise News bụ ihe anyị wetara unu. O nwere nnukwu ihe mere n'iru akwụkwọ a, ebi ọzọ ebi. Nnamdi Kanu prophecy has come to pass. Gee ya bụ ife, ị ga-esia ya ọfụma. Ị drọpụrụ anyị kọmentị gị gbasata maka ihe i chere, bikos anyị ama mkpa okwu afa n'iru akwụkwọ. Ọzọ dịka ibe ya bụ Igbo Media ka anyị si wee wetara unu ya. Alright, over to you, sir.
Of course, university teachers, it's like we worked 2022 and got nothing. I keep saying we worked. For instance, I was at the department then. There was no day I didn't go to work for those 8 months that government is withholding the salary. I will also say time and again that the lecturer's work is not just to go and teach. Teaching is just 25-30% of what lecturers do. They do research, community service. And so to say no work, no pay cannot really apply in that strict sense to university teachers. We've said this over and over again. And we even pointed to things that we did during the strike. During our own time, when we did journals, we did everything and all that. It's part of our assignment as intellectuals. So government promised to pay 4 months out of the 8. They should actually pay the 8. But even the 4 promised, nothing. The 35,000 naira that the government promised to pay, this is the 5th month. Government has only paid 2, out of all of that. This last month, federal government workers got paid on the 10th. I've been in the service for quite some time now, over 20 years. I can't recall any time that we were paid this late. Maybe second, maybe third, 4th at the very worst. So, it speaks to how government has treated workers, which is why NSC is, calling for this strike. We hope government will reflect and, do what is right so that the pains of the economic condition, the fuel subsidy removal and all the other things that have followed, inflation that has reached, unprecedented level, they will be able to at least cope a bit with it. We hope government will act and act decisively so that the strike can be averted. If there's a strike, it will even be worse for an already very bad economy. And this idea of government will only act when labor threatens to go on strike is very embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing, because this government is supposed to be a government of progressives. People for the military, people, the pedigree. One does not expect that we have this many labor problems with the government that projects itself the way this government does. So it's not too late. Government should take a step back, reflect, and do what is right so that this strike can be prevented. And this incessant industrial action that they will likely face moving forward can also be averted. We hope so, because this same government that before you knew it, some people were getting a car of 160 million naira, and people cannot get 35,000. Just look at the difference. They are arguing, we need a car for our assignment. A car of 20 million can also do the same assignment in an economy like ours. It just speaks to the insensitivity of the ruling class in Nigeria. But we hope the government will listen. The government of President is better than that of Buhari in that respect. I can say that categorically. He listens, unlike the other one that you hear nothing. You will like go and jump into the lagoon, that's your business. But this one, at least the president listens, the government listens. So we hope that the government will do what is right, so that the already bad situation will not be made worse. Then finally, the grain thing. Yes, the condition is so bad. In fact, the government of Niger State is saying that food from Niger should not go to other states. That tells you the extreme, that things have, got to where we are now. Yes, we know the grain will be fine, but there was some revolution that was taking place under additional Minister of Agriculture a couple of years ago, which almost made, which was pushing us towards being food sufficient. What happened to it? Why does it seem that since then everybody else went to sleep? We are now in somnolence. If you release this grain comes from excess. So you need to also work to get some excess to replace it, so that if there is some need like this in future, the emergency release can come. So some very serious attention will be to an agricultural practice. We used to give them support and all that. Under Emefiele, we say a lot of things back and forth and all that. Something more systematic that will make us, because we're getting, even the rice. Where is Lake Rice, for instance? Lagos and Kebbi states partnering, and we had the rice all over the place. We helped. Where is Lake Rice? It has suddenly disappeared to thin air. So these are initiatives that need to be revived and built on, so that we can be full sufficient. Bringing grain from the deal is good. There's only for emergency. It's not good for a permanent thing. So let's get all these things coordinated, so that we can address all of these problems from a more holistic point of view.
Okay, Professor Kila.
Well, in the same order, I mean, the tragic loss of Habetik with a very sad, it's a very sad event, because he's somebody who has achieved a lot and was promising to achieve more. On a personal note, I've met the wife several times. I knew him personally, and I also knew Bimbo Ogunbanjo personally. So it's a very personal loss. Amazingly, I was actually with Ogunbanjo just last week Sunday at the IGBO College function. So, and we did discuss. It's a very sad thing, you know, and as has been said, it teaches the rest of us to know that nobody knows when the time will come, and we should lead a good life, and perhaps remind other people to lead a good life so that we don't have to lie when you die, because eventually we will die. So it is good to actually live a life of principle, achievement, and focus, and where possible to be kind, besides being visionary, so that others will not lie about you. And there's a new word coming. I want to warn everybody, especially leaders and public figures, that whilst, you know, for the past 300 years or so, it was accepted that when people die, you don't say any bad thing about them. Now people will say bad things about you if you die. You know, it's changing. So one should not accept that inviolability of the dead anymore. And, you know, our thoughts and prayers to the family, both the corporate family and the biological family and the community family, which Igwe has cultivated, and to Ogunbanjos as well. The Nigerian situation. So the labor, one thing needs to be said, some general consideration. Things are very tough in the country. That is a premise that everybody should understand, both for people and for government. We need to understand that we're in a tight situation. We must understand that somehow labor needs to be seen to be doing something. That is a duty they have, because if they don't do that, they will lose their relevance and importance. And I say relevance and importance not in a propagandistic way. It is almost as if they keep quiet, their essence will not be justified. I have seen people throw barbs at me, you know, who am I, saying that you seem to be keeping quiet on this government, but you are always talking about the government. So that tells you how people are feeling about matters, you know, to say that you are protesting against Jonathan when he increased petrol from this level to that level, and this one you're not saying anything. It tells you how people feel, and it is important. I can say I don't care what people say, but Labour cannot do that. So they have to be seen to be doing something. In doing that, and we go to where I started from, somehow we must understand that the country is in a bad place. There seems to be no money. There seems to be lack of a lot of things. So somehow, the rational thing to do, whilst we understand our subjective and personal duties, is to find a way to have a conciliatory look at things, to see how we can all get out of it, knowing that we're in trouble. I do believe that the government, for example, has good intention, but somehow they're not able to bring out good output. You know, they're like people who want to feed it, but they don't know how to cook. There's like, given that we're near Valentine's Day, the government of Nigeria seems to be somebody who loves but does not know how to love. I think there's some subtle contradiction there that hopefully they will get some more competence and a better look at things to be able to solve it. That is, and the proof of that is the fact that Comrade Ajero can sit at an interview, which was a tough interview he did with you, but he could point out that, what was his expression he used? No action. He could actually say, they made promises, but they've not fulfilled their promises. They've done things, but we've not seen the result of what they've done. I want to warn those in government, those in the presidency around them, that that is a very dangerous thing for government. It is a very dangerous thing that government should say something and not do it. That is worse than revolution. It is worse than chaos, because the essence of government, before infrastructure, before security, is certainty. When a government says something, it should do it. A government that does not do that risk not being thrown away by revolution or coup, but actually risk some kind of defibrillation in which it loses its own authority to command. There is an issue that you mentioned, which is integrity of labor, and I think labor should take that very seriously. Comrade Ajero can say today that no government has given him 20 naira or 10 naira, nor lodged him in any hotel, but can he put his hand on fire for all his predecessors, especially some of them who have turned to politicians today? That is the kind of thing that we need to deal with. And to get it right, everybody needs to play their part in terms of vision, philosophy, and principle and sacrifice. That is very crucial, because leadership is about certainty and integrity. If any kind of leadership, be it government or civil society, loses those things, there is a risk that they will not be able to function. I think that whilst we understand the need for labor to show their stance, the onus is also mainly on government, but I think also on labor, to understand that this is a tough situation. A strike will not benefit anybody, but the government should not. The government should not exploit that kind of thing. Professor Awara was very right when he pointed out that it's a sad thing that until people bang their fist on the table, until they threaten to strike or go on strike or go to protest, government does not seem to respond. That's a very bad thing. We need to find a way to respond without threatening each other, so that we can have a civic and civil conversation. It's a very crucial thing. In terms of the distribution of grain, which is a response to the food emergency, yes, it is a good thing that the government is reacting to the cry of the people. There's no doubt there's a good thing about that. But I have a problem with the kind of response they're giving. This kind of response is a desperate response. I have a problem with it for two reasons, and they're both procedural reasons. Number one is that we need not get to where we are today before we realize that we have a crisis at hand. Some of us have been saying it, a lot of my colleagues, economists, have been saying this thing. We saw it coming. This is the chronicle of a pre-announced trouble, and we could have dealt with it and averted it months ago before we got here. Now that we're here, whilst it is understandable that the people are hungry, give them food method, which seems direct, it is not just pedestrian, but it's actually sad. I mean, you give grains to people at war. Maybe where we are is as if we're war. I mean, what's this idea of government is giving out food? I think it's normal for us, because I have seen food banks in Lagos now, which is something that was the first day I saw it, I actually parked to go and look at it to make sure I saw right. Those are very sad things that we should not normalize. Those are normal things. And I think whilst people are needy, somehow we need to philosophically and in terms of institution know that philanthropy is not a way of life. And this is where I go to the second point, which does not convince me about the way the government is acting. There's a tendency for government to act like philanthropists rather than government. This idea of giving out palliative, giving out grain, giving out money, is somehow we need to understand that the job of government is not to give out, is to make things happen. And until we embrace that principle, we're going to be in trouble. So, President is wrong when he says that the government seems not to be taking care of the poor. He that does not remember the poor. The government remembers the poor. The problem is making them poorer by taking from them. So we have a government who, in the name of the poor, is a lot of the things that the government is doing is done in the name of the poor and the very poor. The problem that is the result is making them poorer than they were, because now the rich is taken from the poor to become richer and the poor are getting poorer. I think that needs to change if we really want to get things right.
Okay, talking about the poor, let's take this next topic. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the Distillers and Blenders Association of Nigeria have warned that business investment worth over 800 billion naira may be lost if the ban placed on alcoholic beverages in sachets and PET bottles not less than 200 milliliters by the National Agency for Food and Drug and Administration Control, NAFDAC, is allowed to stay. The two industry stakeholder groups made their positions on the matter known the past week. In order to avert what they called impending colossal loss on investment in machines, raw materials, and financial resources, they have called on President Bola Tinubu to prevail on the NAFDAC Director General, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, to reverse the ban. They also urged the President to save 5.5 million direct and indirect persons currently earning their livelihood from the business. While they argued that they are not in any way fighting NAFDAC, they noted that they needed to reach a common ground which will address both the health of the underage and that of the business concerns in the wine and spirit sector. Well, okay, this is what we have before us. But the position of Professor Mojisola Adeyeye is that, look, this decision was reached long time ago, since as far back as 2018. And it included NAFDAC stakeholders, within the industry, these same, producers of alcoholic beverages in sachet and all of that. And the agreement was reached that by the beginning of 2022, there will be a 5% reduction. And that over time, up till 2024, they will stop production. So it was meant to be a gradual process. What NAFDAC has now done is to begin the enforcement, and they are already doing so in some states of the Federation, which will include destruction of products and also the sealing off of factories where these sachet alcoholic drinks are produced. Now, what is the key argument that this decision was based upon? That the WHO has advised that there are about 200 health issues that are related to alcohol consumption. And that, indiscriminate consumption of alcohol, particularly at motor parks and elsewhere, and by underage persons, that these are things that the government can no longer allow. And an agreement having been reached as far back as 2022, and enough time given, NAFDAC says now is wielding the big stick. So is NAFDAC acting as a moral police? Is the businesses, the investors, are they right to say that investment over 800 billion will be lost, and that people, over 5.5 million people, will be put out of jobs? If alcohol consumption is the issue, are there other methods that could have been adopted? What are the best practices elsewhere? Let me start with you, Professor Kila, on this.
Well, when I first got the news, my instinct was, I heard the man person say they don't want to fight NAFDAC. My first instinct was, no, they must fight NAFDAC. But then I held myself back because I don't want people to think it's because I'm an alcoholic that I'm so much in defense of this alcohol matter. But then I got to read, and then the point you made came out. I think in terms of where we are, we need to have a holistic approach about what we're dealing with in the country. And I think this is the wrong time to ban any kind of economic activity. I'm not even sure it's the right time to ban prostitution or anything. For now, anything that yields money, that creates jobs, should be allowed to flow. I think we should tell ourselves that, to know that, look, there's no point trying to be moral or saving some health issues that can lead to debt. Unemployment, hunger, starvation is also bad for our health. What has WHO said about that? Lack of light is bad for our health. What is the directive they're giving us? Bad roads is bad for our health. It can kill people. Actually, that's killed people. I mean, what have they done about that? So I think NAFDAC and the rest of the government needs to understand that it is not enough to be right. One has to be right at the right time. Timing is also very important. So this is not the time to ban any economic activity. But I also think the leadership of man, they need to look at themselves seriously, because if they entered an agreement, they should respect it. They shouldn't have entered. I believe that they shouldn't have entered that kind of agreement. But since they've entered, they should respect it. I think for now, what we should just give to them is some kind of rule of exceptionalism to let them take advantage of the current situation. And now this is my own sort of personal liberal worldview. But I do not believe in banning. I believe in persuasion. This idea of saying that you ban a product and people will stop consuming it, I think is wrong. What we should do is to educate people not to consume it in the wrong way, because the state, I don't think, has a moral authority to tell anybody not to consume anything unless it's pure poison, and if it's that, it will not be consumed, because it is not illegal. The idea of saying, they're not saying we're banning alcohol, they're saying we're banning the dosage of alcohol. So they want to use economic and financial means to persuade people, but rather than persuade, they're coercing. Elsewhere, what they do, which I do not agree with, is fiscal measure. They put tax on it, on tobacco and alcohol, to dissuade people from consuming it. Even with that, I do not agree, but that's my own very personal thing. I think it's the schools, the churches, and the mosque, and other places of worship, and the family, that should let people know that life can be better with alcohol, if it can be. Sometimes one has doubt.
Professor Olawo?
I agree with Professor Kila that man made a mistake to have entered into the agreement in 2018. It was a mistake. If you ask me personally, at an ethical level, I would say, well, I'm a grassroots person.
Yeah.
Where I see people in the parks in the morning, they are drinking this thing, throwing the sachet anywhere they can throw it and all that. I don't think it's so neat, but the question you ask is, tobacco, that's cigarettes, and this sachet drink, which one is worse for people's health?
The health.
And what hasn't NAFDAC? Or even the whole world, even WHO? What haven't they? Why does the tobacco industry still exist? So my argument is at the comparative, this thing. If tobacco industries can still flourish, despite the fact that the people are told that those who smoke it are liable to die young, I don't think NAFDAC has any business banning sachet drink. In my office, I have a lot of it. I have NSA, I have a blue label, red label.
In your office?
Yes, that people gave to me. I hardly drink, so they are there. Now, those who have it in bottles, is it not the same content? Why they target? A young person can also drink the one in bottle. If a young person gets it, a 13-year-old can drink it if he has access to it. Why target that one in sachet?
Oh no, but there's a point to prove that it's affordability. What they say is this: because that is very affordable, it opens the market to many more people. Whereas the bottle, the blue label bottle, and the other bottles you have, they need to save a lot more to get to that. So because of that, it is argued that they can dissuade them. That's a price question in this case, but it's actually called price persuasion.
Honestly, I think everything is wrong about it. Especially when you compare alcohol to tobacco.
Yes.
And other things that practically destroy your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. How do you demand? What did they agree that? Look, just like you have said, the best way is persuasion. Whereas the National Retail Agency and all the rest, this thing, if you become an alcoholic, your life will be destroyed.
Yes.
Just like they tell people who take tobacco, that it is dangerous for you, but of course people still take it. They say, some people say that something must kill man. But they use that philosophy and they go ahead.
But in fairness, the thing of tobacco, the smokers have actually reduced generally compared to how people were smoking before.
Maybe they should follow that.
They should follow. That's the point. That's what they should follow.
No, you can't treat it. Is it because poor people are the ones that take it?
Yes, that's
it goes back again to the vulnerable.
To the voiceless.
Let's take a foreign subject before we close with football. Senegal. We treated the subject here last week, but there have been developments in that country. Protesters have now clashed with the police in Dakar after President Macky Sall announced the indefinite postponement of the presidential election set for February the 25th. Sall cited a dispute between the National Assembly and the Constitutional Court over rejected candidates as the reason for the delay. Opposition leaders denounced the decision and hundreds of protesters took to the streets Sunday. International entities, including the European Union, the United States, and France, called for a prompt, transparent, and credible election. As we pointed out last week, President Macky Sall's tenure expires on April 2. What he has now done, which is clearly a constitutional coup against the people of Senegal, one of the most stable democracies in Africa. Since independence, Senegal has not had a coup. Now Macky Sall has imposed a coup on the people of Senegal. One, he could not get the third term that he wanted, and now he has that third term through the back door, because the parliament, with security agents of the state clamping down on the opposition, has now gone ahead to fix a new date for December 2024, which will amount to an 8-month extension for President Macky Sall. And now the Sahel coalition of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, they are laughing at ECOWAS. They are saying, okay, let us see ECOWAS now impose sanctions on Senegal, although ECOWAS has already issued a statement condemning latest developments. But the fear is the big uncertainty, in Senegal, which could derail perhaps Africa's most stable democracy as we know it. Professor Aura, I'll start with you.
What is happening in Senegal is very, very disturbing. Macky Sall, the parliament, the political class in Senegal are a disgrace to Africa, a disgrace.
And the by Dalo Lineno, only if I see when I saw any many rock on Opasinketa. I said Opasinketa Malo no more. I think which Korea zero. And the Cosidi, and the king of the Biafran Prime Minister Kuni Rakwa. Zoduki Biabo, Iabo, Ibo Media. Kaisipo when you tell on Kozia do Kemba. Geniki when you Kubasta Makaya Bifa. Kabaroke drop for your comment, your own suggestion. Ni endali the Biafran Prime Minister Kuni Rakwa. Thank you so much and stay tuned at Igbo Media. Daro no munem kemesian.